In the last video, I spoke about how I had groin pain and recurring groin injuries for over 10 years. But the real shift for me wasn't just finding the right exercises to do. It was actually me realizing that the whole time I had literally been going about this the wrong way. So this might sound familiar. This is what I would go through. So I would get injured. I would start my rehab process with the physio. Then I would stick to that rehab for however long, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever. And then eventually the pain would start to ease. And then once it did, I would go back to doing what I was doing before. And things would be fine for a while. And then maybe 6 weeks later, 12 weeks later, I would get injured again. And I would repeat this process for years and years. And the reason why is, well, if you've ever heard the saying, you don't use it, you lose it. So when I was doing my rehab, I would build a little bit of foundational strength, which would make the symptoms ease. And because the symptoms eased, then I stopped strengthening the areas, which in return made them weaker again, which is why I kept getting injured. You have to find a way to training your hips and implementing this strength work into your routine permanently, not just as rehab, but as part of how you train. This is how you stay bulletproof long term. So now I'm going to go through the exact strength progressions that I used to take me from getting recurring groin strains to having elite level strength in my hip abductors, starting with where we left off last week. Let's go. So we're going to start with a foam roller adductor squeeze. And this simple exercise was literally groundbreaking for me at the time, the first time I ever done this, because it kind of gave me an idea of what the body actually needs in order to recover. We're often told when we go to physios that we should just stretch the tissue, and we're given all these yoga mobility exercises, which are great. But the problem is, if the tissue in your hips is weak and it isn't used to firing up, you can stretch it all day if you want, but you're not really going to get anywhere long term. You might get a little bit of temporary relief at best, but once you cool down again, the tissue's just going to shorten right back up and you're back to square one. So you need to teach the tissue in your hips how to fire up correctly before you start stretching. And this simple exercise does just exactly that. Lie on your back, put your feet on the wall, legs 90 degree, place the foam roller between your knees, and then you're going to set a timer somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds, whatever you think you can tolerate. And all you're going to do for that time is push your knees into the foam roller and squeeze the foam roller, and you're really going to feel your hips fire up here. So if you do this every day for 7 days, you'll start to feel the tissue relax. After 7 days, then we're going to start to gently lengthen out the tissue just by tilting the pelvis. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to pull this hip into the pocket while I extend the opposite side, while of course keeping the squeeze and keeping the pressure on the foam roller. And this is just going to start to add some gentle movement into the adductors. Just think about pushing one knee up and sucking the other one down and engaging, especially when you're at the bottom end of the rep. You're thinking about squeezing, and when you're at the top, you're thinking about pushing it away and stretching the tissue. And if you do this for 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps each side. So the next stage is a sideline adductor hold. Once you've spent at least a few weeks on the foam roller squeeze, then once that starts to feel easier and the tissue feels a little bit more comfortable contracting and firing up, then you're good to move into the next phase. I can't stress this enough, because later in the video I'm going to show you some pretty advanced exercises for the adductors. Do not skip any steps. I don't want to see anyone in my comments saying, Stephen, I tore my groins trying the Copenhagen plank. Okay, so you've skipped about 5 steps before you get to that. It's really important when you're going through these exercises to progress gradually. Okay, so how a simple way to know when you're ready to move on is when one variation starts to feel pretty easy, okay? So when that foam roller squeeze starts to feel easy, then you're gonna move into this side lying adductor hold. Once again, once this feels easier, you'll move on to the next phase, which we'll go into in a second. But this is part 2, so pretty simple to do. You're gonna lie on your side, the bottom leg is straight, the top leg, step it over, okay? Try not to lean back like this, okay? Get right onto your side. If you crunch in a little bit, that's gonna help keep you in the right position. As I said, bottom leg straight, keep it locked out. As you lift it up off the floor, think about squeezing the inner hips, and you're just gonna hold this position. Once again, 3 sets of 15 to 30 seconds, whatever you can tolerate. You might find once you go up the variations, the time that you can hold these positions will decrease. But of course, you just start building them up again. Okay, so just focus on keeping that squeeze on the inner hips. You can see my legs are already shaking a little bit. That's exactly what you want. Don't be worrying if your legs start shaking like mad. That's just the muscles starting to fire up, and you're just going to hold that position. And you might find that one side is going to be a good bit harder than the other. Don't worry, that's completely normal. Just let the other side play catch up. Don't be trying to skip to the next step because you think you can do it on one side and then you'll hurt the weaker side. Give it time, let both sides even out, and then build the tolerance in your hips together. Progressing from the sideline adductor hold to the knee on bench Copenhagen plank is most likely going to be the toughest challenge on your journey. So as I said before, make sure that you've nailed the steps before jumping into this. So you should be able to hold for 3 sets of 30 seconds on the sideline adductor hold before you even think about this. If you're too far away, no problem at all, just save this video and you can come back to it at a later time. Work on building the skill first in the sideline hold. So from here, what we're going to do is hold the side plank position, okay? So we want our knee, hips and shoulders all in a straight line. I see a lot of people and they'll be like this here, or they'll be bent like this. Try just to check your position before you lift up, okay? So knees on the bench, I bring this bottom leg up, elbow is under the shoulder for stability, so we're not hurting our shoulder in the process of recovering the groins. And then I'm gonna push this knee into the bench, lift up and hold. Once again, somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds. So this exercise will drive a lot more tension into the adductors. So definitely do not do this every day. Maximum 3 times per week with a 1-day rest in between. And the best advice I can give is when holding this, because it is rather uncomfortable, especially at the start, is just focus on your breathing. So deep breaths in. With long exhales. Keep this tension, keep pushing the knee in. You don't want to let the hips drop, so keep the knee active to keep your hips up, okay? Once that feels a lot more tolerable, then you can start to work your way down the bench. So in the Copenhagen plank, the easiest variation is keeping the knee on the bench. Over time, you're going to start working your way down. You can maybe go halfway down your shin, lift up and hold for the same amount of time, 15 to 30 seconds, build it up to 30 seconds over time. And then the final boss is foot on bench, Copenhagen plank, where we just hold in this straight line, not letting the hips drop. Keep the adductor strong. focus on the breathing. So now we've added some foundational strength back into our hips. We're going to finish this session off with a simple mobility exercise called the hip airplane, which is going to teach our hips how to rotate. And this is so important, especially for anyone that, say, plays sports like football, basketball, or even just likes to go on a jog when the weather's nice. Because you think when you're running, when you change direction, your hips must have the ability to rotate or they're going to ping. So this simple exercise will start restoring the mobility that you need. It's called the hip airplane, okay? So if you're doing this in the gym, you can use a rig or a cable machine. If you're doing this at home, you can even use like a stair banister. So if I stand in line with the bar, right, I'm going to bring my left hand over my head, put the right arm on the bottom, and then I'm going to kick the left leg back, okay? So if you're super tight, keep the knee bent a little bit more. And then from here, you're just going to turn the knee out, opening your chest up and opening the hips up. You'll feel it stretch on the leg that you're standing on. And then turn the pelvis back in, okay? Over time, as your mobility increases, you can just start to work that leg a little bit straighter. And over time, completely extending this rear leg. Okay, so very important, don't let this leg get lazy like this, okay? We want to kick this leg right back, so we're turning the glutes on before we rotate. And this looks simple enough, but I can promise you it's quite hard, especially if you've been dealing with groin pain previously. Just work through your natural range of motion. Don't worry about how far you can open the hips up. The goal is just to get a gentle stretch on the tissue. When you're including this alongside with the strength exercises, aim for 3 sets of 8 reps each leg. So make sure you stick with each step for at least a few weeks at a time. It's very, very important not to skip any of these steps and jump straight to the end, or you're going to set yourself back even further. As I said, a simple and easy way to know when you're ready to progress. The step that you're currently on, whether it be the foam roller squeeze or the side lying adductor hold, you should wait until that variation gets pretty easy before thinking about progressing to the next step. It might mean you're on a certain variation for a little bit longer than you want to be, but it's certainly better than trying to get ahead of yourself and getting injured again. These are the exercises that I use to build foundational strength back into my hip adductors, but they certainly didn't work just by themselves. In episode 3, I'm going to take you through my complete hip adductor protocol, where in this episode we focused on strengthening the area in the short ranges. Next one, we're going to work on strengthening them in the longer ranges. So not only is your hips going to build tolerance, it's going to build tolerance in those lengthened and stretched out positions. This session will show you how to build long lasting strength and flexibility within your hips, so this time you can keep the pain and injuries away for good.